going on, everybody? This is Abdullah Konte here with Skylar Nelson, and it's an episode after the joint practice between the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens up in Owings Mills, Baltimore. Skylar, it sounds like a lot happened. Not maybe the best practice. Obviously you were there representing us, and what did you see? First off, I want to say thank you for not tweeting out, because I know that there was rules about the tweeting, and I know I had mentioned to people like follow Skylar to get tweets, but there was rules on not tweeting. So I commend you on that. But I felt like
who
just like the
rules,
fans. We know who all broke the rules, but I was definitely sitting there like a fan, just watching the phone and watching my screen just to see what was going on. But it sounded like it wasn't a great practice. So yeah, tell us about just a quick experience of being up in Baltimore, and what did you see?
I mean, the experience is great. For those who don't know, I actually live by the facility, so today I didn't have a 2-hour drive, which was nice. But to be honest with you, based on what I saw today, I thought, kind of piggybacking off of what Jaden said today, what, Brandon kind of said today, like there were a lot of, this practice was needed. There were some good moments, but there were a lot of moments that really stood out. That was like, this ain't it. Okay. I gotta be honest. The O-line is definitely a major problem. It's a lot, that I kind of saw today from the O-line. We saw one-on-ones. We saw, the team drills, them doing, drills with combined 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s. And for me personally, Golden looks, with what they have right now and with how everything has gone, given the injuries, given the other factors of this team, everybody moving around so much on the line, I honestly feel like Golden looks the best right now in the center spot. I do not think that Good Jones is the person who should be in the center spot. However, I do feel like that the rest of the line has to be evaluated right. I do feel like that there's something missing. It's just force. It's just, just playing up front. I think, like Brandon was talking today after practice, and he said, it's just the little things. Like, it's the little things that you don't necessarily teach, right? And for me, I understand that, but it's like against Philly, Dallas, that's not going to fly. And it's just like, I understand, in one-on-ones, we were looking at one-on-ones, and, Golden got blown a couple times, Josh, same thing. It was the same thing, for Good Jones too. And, DQ, it was even worse watching the O-line only because, Sam Cosmi wasn't there. So it was really hard to really evaluate other things. It was like evaluating the guys that have been there. And then one of the biggest things that stood out to me was, Josh Connolly Jr. said after practice, he was like, I'm on the line with some of the guys that I haven't been on the line with all camp, which is also not good to hear. For me, like that kind of gave me worried face, because I'm like I get that y'all are not on the line together, but I also said this to a couple other media members too in the last couple of days. Like, I do feel like that there is an issue, as much as they're trying to try guys at different spots and trying to see where guys can fit the most. And some guys can play multiple positions on the line. Somebody's got to pick a spot. I'm sorry. Somebody's going to have to pick a spot. They're going to have to stay where they're at and play consistently in those spots. That's just my personal opinion. But I understand DQ. They're trying to do everything they can with what they have, given what the injuries are. So I commend them for that. But this is still a problem.
Yeah, look, I mean, based upon everything we heard today, it didn't sound like things were great. The offensive line has been a concern for a while, and it's very concerning when you think about all the teams that they're playing off rip. Like you said, I mean, they got Philly. We know about the D linemen they have there. They have Dallas, who has Quinn Williams. Like, they have Seattle, who has Leonard Williams. You have New York. The Giants are known, even though they're not a great team, they're known for their D line. Their D line is really good. So these are all problems that, teams that their strength could be, their D linemen are a top part of their strength in all these teams. And, they even Miami was having some success against them. And we do have to recognize, like we saw Nikki's tweet. which kind of went parabolic. Everybody's freaking out over Nikki's tweet about
Yeah.
the offense being in shambles pretty much. And, what I had said, and I stand by it, is that I'm not saying that she's wrong or anything. I'm just saying, like, look, Tunzel's out, which you're not going to get Tunzel anytime soon.
Yeah, you're not.
But,
And he was there
Cosme,
today supporting,
yeah, I
which I
heard.
thought was great.
No, I heard. Yeah, and then you had Cosme, who's been out. You have Allegretti, who's out. Good Jones and Goldman's a rookie. Good Jones is not really a true backup. I don't even see him making his team. I think that when we see other teams get cut or cutting some of their players, you're going to see a lot of revamped. You're going to see this O-line be a little bit more revamped because they're probably going to bring some new people in. But it's clear they cannot start the season like this. If Allegretti, if Allegretti is the answer, you better get somebody to back him up that is quality, because of the fact that we don't know if he's going to be able to play. He hasn't played all camp. And we talked about this before, the O-line is the most important. When it comes to gelling as a room, the O-line is the most important room to gel together as a room, right?
Absolutely.
By far the most important. And that's where you lose somebody like Tunsil. That's a huge, problem, not just for that one position, but for the whole group. Because as you said, people are playing in different spots. They're changing people around. This guy's going to play this position today, then they're moving him to this position the next day. With Tunsil being in the lineup, everybody really had their space, and it's really affecting them significantly. But changes have to be made. I know they brought DJ Humphries, but a part of me still thinks that they should have went for Decker, because he was Humphreys is more of a depth piece, but to me, bringing Decker gives you ability to move Coleman, and I think Coleman's been good. It's one of the positions that I actually feel more solid about on the line. But essentially, we're not sold on left guard with Chris Paul. You bring in somebody like Decker, you can at least push Paul and Coleman inside to work on the guard spot.
But see, that's
another position you have to worry about less. I mean, there's clearly three positions on the O-line that we're a little bit nervous about. So it's just very, I think today, and I saw it in some of the players' faces, I think there was a certain sense of frustration, not because of just, personal performance. I feel like everyone on the O-line has different strengths and abilities that are pretty solid. The problem is I feel like that they're being moved around so much that it's there's only so much that we can really evaluate. It's one day this person's playing at right guard, another day this person's playing at left tackle, and me and us and everyone just trying to put all the pieces together. And it's really hard to evaluate one person in one position because it's everybody's moving around so much. Yeah, it really is.
You can't necessarily say, oh, this person is bad in this position. He's in a position that he doesn't typically start at, or doesn't play, or hasn't played half of his career.
I mean, they were talking to Jaden about it, and he's you could tell he's doing the quarterback speak about, for the amount of times I've played with these guys, they're doing their best, they're doing great, and all this stuff. But you could even tell in his voice that's I haven't played with these guys enough. I don't know what we have right now. And so there is a level of panic that should be there. I think it's worth, we talk about people crashing out on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And there are some people who are crashing out heavy, right? And I think sometimes there is a line about how much you should, but there should be a concern about the O-line. You can't play. You can't play football without an O-line. You just can't. You cannot score points. Jaden, I heard from, because not only are we following y'all, we're following Baltimore's coverage, and they're basically this offense can't do anything, right? It sounded like how we were talking about Miami's offense when they were playing up in Ashburn, is that they couldn't do anything. There was no movement, no gelling, no chemistry on the offensive side, and it sounds like not only, and this is where we could kind of maybe pivot to another position group, but it sounds like not only did the O-line struggle, but there was also drop passes. Outside of Antonio Williams playing really well from what we heard today, it seems like a lot of the other guys didn't play so well. We heard nothing. I heard nothing about Terry. I heard Stephon Diggs had a drop. I heard Chig had a drop. I didn't hear much about anybody else except for Antonio Williams. So tell us, what you think, what you see from the receiving core.
Well, here's the thing. They played it today like Terry is Terry. So we didn't really see too much of Terry, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I will say. They kind of did it as Terry is Terry. Would it have been nice to see more of Terry? Absolutely, but he didn't have too much participation in one-on-ones when it came to receivers and DBs. And rightfully so. I feel like Terry has earned his spot of reassurance in him and reassurance in his playability. We did get to see Stefan today. Stefan is Stefan. I mean, he had one drop today, but it was just like, that was a human factor. And the defense was, they did their job. It's the Ravens defense, so I get that part as well. But it wasn't anything from Stefan or Terry that was like, oh my gosh, like,
they're terrible or something.
This is
like
a problem,
that, yeah.
So those are two guys that we know are solidified. Now, Antonio Williams today, and I do want to address this. Yes, Antonio Williams had a great play against Kyle Hamilton. Did it look good for Antonio Williams? Absolutely. But let's not forget that Kyle Hamilton is the best safety in the league, and you're not going to see him that far down the hill, like guarding someone like that in a real.
Wait, no, that's not true. You can see him on because if he's playing,
not exactly how we saw it today. Like everybody's like,
possible.
"Oh my god!"
No, possible. Like I mean, look, they might not. It's one-on-ones, and I think that's what you're trying to say. It's one-on-ones. Antonio Williams had great reps against one-on-ones, and as a former DB, yes, those one-on-ones are catered to corners. But what I will say is that if they do one-on-one coverage, he could be matched up against a person
for
like
red
Antonio
zone.
Williams.
Yes,
yeah, not even just red zone. Depending on what they call on the defense, he
true.
could be matched up to somebody like Antonio Williams because we do think Antonio Williams will play more in the slot than anything else, and that's where you could see that matchup. But I agree. Look, Kyle Hamilton is a freak of nature.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys. Like he is, if not the best safety, he's like in the top 2.
No,
or 3.
He's
like,
the best safety in the league. In my
look, she's a little biased because she's she's
no,
from Baltimore. You hear it like there's a little bit.
First of all, no, I'm actually not showing any bias.
I'm saying it's arguable. It's arguable that Kyle Hamilton is one of the best safeties in the league.
His size,
you could say he's number one, and I'm not saying that I'm strongly arguing that. I'm just saying that he's definitely, if he's not number one, he's at least in the top 2 to 3. Like there's no. I think you could argue about Derwin James, him.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean, Xavier McKinney. Like there's some other guys I feel like you could put in that category. But yes, I do think he's more likely number one than not. Yeah. But that being said, it's still good to see that a rookie is able to have some success on a guy like Kyle Hamilton. But I also do agree that it is one-on-ones. It wasn't real, and that's the problem here when we talk about the O-line is that you can't even give guys proper looks if you can't block them up. Yeah. Sure, one-on-ones is cool and all, but when it came to 11-on-11, it sounded like there was no traction, no movement at all. It just wasn't really working. So, I mean, outside of Antonio Williams and sticking just on the offensive side of the ball, was there anybody else that was, impressive? I heard that Coleman had some good reps. Like, I don't know if there was anybody in the run game or, anybody else outside of Antonio Williams that you left there being like, yeah, he did pretty good.
I mean, to be honest with you, I will say, like, Robert Henry Jr., he did have a fumble. Which wasn't ideal, to be honest with you. But, I feel like him and Traylon kind of made up for it in the end when it came to second team reps, when they were with Ethan and against the second team defense. Is that completely ideal? Not necessarily. But, I mean, I feel like that it took them a while to really gel and get into the fold. I feel like, to be honest with you, I mean, there were, especially when one-on-ones first started, they were getting on Diami bad, but there were some flags thrown in to kind of, help benefit Diami a little bit because they were on him. I saw his jersey, it was switched up and everything. So, to me, I just feel like, this was a great practice for them, great competition. I feel like that it made them stronger. It made them know and understand, that these are the types of teams. If you want to continue to keep winning games and getting better, these are the types of teams that you're going to face and you're going to have to play better. I think, same thing for Luke. I know there's been a lot of talks about Luke. He didn't have the complete best day, but he wasn't terrible. And like, that's the thing is it's like a lot of the wide receivers, especially when it came to one-on-ones, they made up for it in the end. Now for Antonio, like we talked about, he was 2 for 2. And, for me, that speaks volume because he was going up against not only Kyle Hamilton, but Nate Wiggins as well. So, those are the things that really stood out. I will say this too, in terms of, we saw a lot of reps today from Lawrence Cager. Wasn't, obviously he did pretty well considering. However, I know that there's still growth and adjustments to make. We saw a lot of him just between different reps today with different quarterbacks and, just between Jaden and Ethan and, just overall as the team transitioned in and out. Chig, though, is someone that I was slightly surprised by today. He had some crucial drops, which I wasn't completely ideal. For me, he didn't show the physicality that we've been preaching about and hearing, and seeing in camp. And that was something that I was looking for from him today, and it just wasn't there. I feel like that the defenders pressured him up front, when he was trying to either block or run his route or get around to the ball. I wasn't really sure kind of what type of day he was truly having, but, it wasn't ideal based on what I saw, especially as someone who's supposed to be their number one tight end. It just wasn't the best from him.
Just sounds like they were not good, like all day. Like, to be completely, there wasn't, what you're telling me is basically kind of where, look, like I said, I was scouring the Twitter sphere, like basically most of the fans out there today, just trying to get as much content, as possible to see what was going on. Mm-hmm. And based upon what you've been saying and what everybody's been saying, what I've been hearing, it was just, no one was good today on offense. Like, it was just not a good offensive day. And I think we can really look at it at the O-line being the the start of that. I do like to take away from things that, like, I'm excited to see Antonio Williams' development. This is where I would hope that they put him more with the ones, especially in this next week or so. There is thoughts that they are holding back a little bit when it comes to play calling and maybe some certain looks and stuff like that. Like, they're trying to keep him a little hidden as well. I heard Lake saying that as well. So maybe, but I think that for those who are nervous about the O-line, who are nervous about where this O-line is and if they're going to be ready for week one, I think that's completely fair. You would agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. The biggest thing for me is, like, to be honest with you, like, Antonio Williams had a great day individually considering, I think he just, he kind of woke everybody up a little bit more to say, hey, I'm here. And, like, that's great, especially for a guy who's coming in as a rookie, who has that ability. He has quickness. He can get around the ball. He can make those crazy plays. Like, there was even one play I was going to grab and get some water, and, Jaden had threw it, kind of a little far out, and he had jumped up to get it. He didn't get it, but the way he had jumped so high, I was like, good gracious, Yeah. So, there were just little things, but I think the offense, it also just came with timing. Like, there was even one play where, it was a route to Terry, and Jaden hesitated a little bit just because he was still trying to figure out, should I still take that look from Terry or switch it up last minute or whatever. So, and then he ended up still throwing it to Terry, but Kyle Hamilton almost had a pick. So, those are the things, that can be cleaned up more so on the offensive end. But, I feel like the best thing, especially too for Jaden and for Jaden's protection, the biggest conversation surrounding today is definitely that O-line.
Yeah, well, we saw him running for his life a lot last year. I think that,
not his life.
I mean, he was running, you know what I'm saying? Like, but, essentially we saw what happened. He didn't stay healthy. He was running a lot last year. I think the offense is supposed to be catered to protect him more. Well, you got to be able to block up front. And I think that AP has learned his lesson, based upon what we've seen the moves be made in the offseason this year. I felt like he learned his lesson when it comes to getting Jaden help. This is another time he needs to learn his lesson and get some people involved like this. And like I said, we're going to wait. Like, we got a lot to talk about between now and Sunday because, one, there's still a game coming up. Two, we have the cut down day. And Sunday. Then what's going to happen after that. But, like, if moves aren't made or changes aren't made, like, basically by Monday, if we don't have a different or some news like Allegretti's back, like, they got everything like ready to go, like, if that's not happening, there's gonna be a lot of people upset about
plus two, where they are. It's hard also to evaluate certain things like the run game. Like, obviously the O-line, they've been doing pretty solid in terms of pass pro over even just from, just the joint practice with Miami, but
Hmm.
just their blocking in the run game has been the issue. And even Brandon and Josh were saying that today, it's the little things that they're still trying to clean
Hmm.
up as everyone is shifting across the line every day. So, that's
Yeah.
something that they're still trying to work on. Like even Josh described it perfectly. It's like
Yeah.
new coworkers
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah,
But
luckily it's not like them. You know what I mean? Do you know how much worse it would be if we were saying like, "Oh, Josh Connerly just can't play," or Brandon Coleman just
yeah,
can't play? Because at least the guys that were saying just can't play are guys that they never anticipated
yeah,
playing in the first place, right? So that's the only like these are the silver linings. And it like for me, I'm an optimist at times. I'm trying really hard to be like, "Yo, let's
mhm,
not overreact and let's not freak out." I do think moves are need to be made, but you have a lot of guys who aren't even playing, right? Like
yeah,
Cosme not playing, that's huge. Cosme is your best lineman after Tunsil, right? Like
yeah.
there's this that's a big deal. So,
Yeah, and they said he was
anyways,
sick. He was sick. He's in the
yeah,
hotel room. Let that be that.
but
We'll
that's a
hear
big
more
deal.
later. It is a
Yeah,
big
it's a
deal.
big deal. It's
So
just
we'll hear more about that soon. And
yeah,
DQ. I yes. Am I worried about the O line? Absolutely. Do I think
sure.
Nikki's tweet that was a little out there? I gotta admit,
She was
like I wouldn't have
wilding.
put it that way, but she's not completely wrong. And
She's
see,
not
the
wrong.
this is the problem. Is it's like people are like getting on her about what she said. I, in some way, stand by what she said. Do I think it was a little bit dramatic? Sure. But at the same time, we were out there today and we saw that, and we can't lie.
Yeah,
It was very blunt. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all about the O line. There
yeah,
needs to be changes made, and I'm confident that the changes will be made. However, there's still a game on Friday. There's roster cutdowns on Sunday, which they'll be able to kind of go around the league and kind of evaluate who they want to bring in. Do they want to switch this person in and out? Who's going to be on this team? And then also, there's still a lot of guys that we got to evaluate next week for injuries. Like DQ said, I can't evaluate these guys until next week. He said it today. He said it last week. He said it in the beginning of this week. So it's kind of like, yes, let's look at the guys. Let's evaluate. Was a really important day, especially because the starters were out there. But also too, we also got to play a waiting game. So again, it's natural to panic when it comes to the Commanders. I solely get it. But at the same time, there's still a lot of things that we still have to wait on though.
yeah. Well, look, let's switch to the other side of the ball. That's
Hmm.
enough offense. Like,
Yeah.
at least there was some bright spots on the defensive side, and I
Yeah.
think the defensive side, they had some guys missing too, but that was the difference from what I heard, what I'd
Hmm.
seen, was that they were able to hold their own, even though they're going against Lamar Jackson,
Hmm.
but there were guys that struggled. It looked like Meek struggled on one-on-ones as well. Like when it came to Rashad Bateman was
Hmm.
torching some people. There was I had mentioned on Rio's stream yesterday that I felt like the thing that I thought that they would have success with if there was anything, because I kind of figured this was going to be not the greatest day. It was worse than I thought it would be. Obviously because Cosme wasn't playing too, that
Yeah,
definitely didn't
Cosme.
help.
That didn't help.
But I really thought that the front seven would hold their own, and it did seem like there was some pressure that they gave to Lamar, but Lamar had some good plays too. So ultimately, like, what was the vibe that not only you but the rest of the people reporting out there felt about the defense? I mean, it seemed like it was an absolute disaster offensively, but defensively, did y'all feel okay or better or what?
I mean, look, the defense has shown tremendous growth over camp, whether they had Owe out there or not. But you could definitely tell today the difference in what it looks like having those guys out there like Kayla Vaughn and Owe. You can tell the difference of having them out there and not having them
Yeah,
out there. And you kind of saw that a little bit today. I will say in terms of the defense, because, I was very focused on the O line at first, then I moved over to the defensive side, which was more like on the right side of the field. But when I saw the defense today, the D line definitely provided some pressure. They had some moments where it was like, Lamar was able to get it off in time. I will say there was more attention for me on the DBs. Like there was even, just a short little play where I saw kind of far from the field where it was like Nick Cross was on Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews was able to get the reception. There was just little things I think the DBs are trying to clean up. And even just talking to Mikey and Jeremy after practice too, like Jeremy was not happy. Okay.
Yeah, I saw a video of
He was
him.
not
Yeah,
happy at
yeah.
all. And I understand that because look, Jeremy's been here for a while. I respect his opinions and, kind of what he says too, especially since, he's been through different phases of this Washington franchise. The biggest thing was that he said that really stood out to me was that it's not enough. And he's right. It's not enough. I do
Hmm.
feel like, especially against Philly, he's seen the terrors of Philly and Dallas and, other teams that they faced throughout the year, especially in the NFC, that
Yeah.
is growing on the defensive end. Like that type of stuff is not going to fly. Like, obviously, today we've been looking for Mikey to have some sort of spark. We were thinking, I said this 2 weeks ago. I was like, there needs to be some sort of spark from Quan and Mikey. And, now, especially too, they've made roster decisions. They've moved some guys around and things of that sort, especially in the safety room. Quan has really stepped up in preseason. He had 2 picks, but, seeing Mikey today on the cornerback side, getting that pick off of Lamar was well needed for him individually.
Hmm.
But I feel like overall, if I had to pick like a group that had the better day, the defense had the better day overall. But there's
Hmm.
still a lot of things that need to be improved for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I mean, look, I think it wasn't ideal seeing some of these DBs getting beat pretty easily,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, there was clips that were out there that I was like, ugh, that was rough. And
Yeah.
granted, like we talked about the one-on-ones thing with
Hmm.
Antonio Hamilton Antonio Williams and Kyle Hamilton. But at
Hmm.
the same time, the same apply for the DBs on this side of the ball,
Yeah.
whereas like one-on-ones is catered to receivers, but some of these were getting beat badly,
Yeah.
not like close, barely getting beat kind of thing, like
Oh no.
inside
Right.
releases, stuff like that. No, like these were just like double moves and the guy's like wide open. Like
Hmm.
Amik has been pretty impressive to me throughout all the offseason. He looked like he had a rough day today. It's one of these things, man. Like, I mean, sometimes you don't have great days. And I
Hmm.
think for me, it sounds like the defense needed to get better. Like, you did have people who were very vocal. Like, hearing Reeves being that vocal was pretty interesting, considering I felt like the defense had a better side of the ball or
Yeah.
played better. And even for him to be that frustrated says something to me. To me, it sounds like the scheme was still giving Lamar some issues. And that's with
Yeah.
the guys that were backups. And I think that they have some good, despite like the backups on the O line aren't great. I think the backups on the D line are actually pretty good. You have a
Absolutely.
who, like when we think about that, Deron Payne didn't play.
Hmm.
Away and Chase Long didn't play.
Yeah.
Like, these are all strong people that are going to be contributing a lot for this team, and
Yeah.
I think the
And you
guys
would
that
think,
replaced them are pretty good too. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and you would think, like, to be honest with you, like, these are not the guys that you would. I mean, in some cases, you could start them, but these are not
Hmm.
the guys that are the declared
Yeah,
ready to start guys. Like, for them to play to this capacity on the line that they did today was pretty
yeah,
impressive, given
yeah,
the fact that they had to go through a first
yeah.
team Ravens offense. Like, come
Yeah.
on now. But
No, and this is where if this was the same level of success that the O line had, we probably wouldn't be freaking out as much because we're
yeah,
like, oh, okay, well it's backups, but they were
yeah,
just a disaster on the O line. Whereas it seems
mhm,
like the D line at least kind of played pretty well, like did
yeah,
okay, like like you said, they're not the starters, they're not guys that you're expecting to contribute all the time. Like, I mean, John Jean Baptiste. God, it's a hard word to say, hard name to say. He is somebody that I think is expected to contribute, but not as a starter. He's supposed to come in on third downs or spell a
mhm,
guy. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
to me, it wasn't their best day, but
mhm,
with the guys that were out there, it seemed like that's kind of what you expect. You're going against the MVP level quarterback. You know what I
mhm,
mean? You're going against like, and this is where we got to be like, the Ravens are a different organization. This is what I
yeah,
was kind of telling Rio yesterday, was that for those people who are following through the Twitter sphere, they might have to recognize that like this is an organization that has been good for years. They have built the depth. This team does not have the
mhm.
greatest amount of depth. When I say this team, I mean Commanders now, that they don't have the best amount of depth. For me, scheme is going to be super important. I thought the defensive scheme has been impressive all camp, and it sounds like they at least held their own today. Would you agree with that?
I felt like that they held their own today, but there's still, especially from the DB side of things, there's still a lot of
Hmm.
things to clean up
They need
sure.
Amos back. They need Amos back. They need,
Yes.
I'm still a little weary about the safety room. You know, they
I
cut two
am
guys
too.
yesterday.
I
They
am
brought two
too.
other guys in. I mean, you know, how many of the guys in that safety room can they really trust? I saw Nick Cross get beat on a one-on-one against, you know, Mark Andrews. Like,
That's
is
what
he
I'm
going to be
saying.
somebody who's strong when it comes to being somebody to rely on in that room? Because if Nick Cross isn't good, and I'm not saying that he's not going to be good, but if you say he doesn't play to the form that you believe he's going to be, they're really going to have issues in that room. And based upon what we've seen in Durante Jones's defense, those safeties are extremely important when it comes to
Absolutely.
coverages and stuff like that. So
I
let's
think
talk
it's
about,
just
yeah, go ahead.
I think it just depends on the sets. Like
Hmm.
for me personally, like Nick Cross is ideally supposed to be the guy based on what we've seen. He's supposed to be the guy that's supposed to be the roamings type of safety. However, I just feel like that it wasn't his complete best day. I think this was also a feel too, and even Jeremy was talking about this. Like, yes, we're trying to feel the Ravens out. We know how the Ravens are. This was their biggest test yet. But again,
Hmm.
this stuff is not going to fly against a Philly or a Dallas. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that was really put on emphasis. You know, like
Yeah.
it's we are getting to scary times of in the fact of their schedule was going to hit hard. But
Hmm.
at the same time, you know, these are things that the commanders they have 2 weeks to kind of
Yeah, they
piece
do have
things
some a little bit
together.
of time. Yeah, like I mean, when it
Yes.
comes to roster building, getting people in the right places, really scheming for the team that they're going to play, they got some time. But
Mhm.
for those who are freaking out, I think it's valid to be freaking out a
It
little
is
bit.
valid.
I think there's a certain level of crash out that could
Yeah,
happen. You know
like,
what I mean? There's some people who
you
are going
know,
crazy. You know
you
what I mean? There's
know,
some
I'm not
crazy
saying
crash
like,
outs,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, kick them off
yeah,
now. Like,
exactly.
we're
Yeah,
not
there's some
there.
crazy tweets
We're
and
not
crazy
there.
reactions, but for those who are concerned and saying that they want more answers in regards to what this O line is doing, I think that's fair because if
Absolutely.
this O line plays the way they've been playing the last week, they will not win very many games. I
Look,
mean,
and
Nikki had said in her article yesterday as well about how she thought that this team is more like a 7-win team, and I don't think that's wrong to say, considering I believe that they were going to be much higher than that when they had Tunsil. When they lose Tunsil and then other shifts on the O line,
stock
and now you
down.
lose Olive Grady, it's hard to imagine that this team's going to have a lot of success if they can't block them up. They got to still play the Rams. Like, we're talking about other teams.
Yeah.
They got to play Dexter Lawrence and the Bengals. Like, there are other teams outside of those top 5 games that have great D lines also that they're going
Yeah.
to have to play against. So
And
this is not it's not some easy schedule. Yeah, go ahead.
plus on top of that too, like another thing to think about as well. And I understand the frustration because Lake and Donna can tell y'all, like on Monday when they had the practice, you know, when they popped up, had the practice
Hmm.
on Monday. We weren't supposed to practice on Monday, but
Hmm. Hmm.
DQ's call. Don't mind it. I feel like that they need all the practice they can get. But when they had the practice, DQ came in and said, you know, we're gonna get Golbin some more reps this week at center. To see Good Jones go out there and be at that center spot after DQ said that they were gonna give Golbin more reps, I was like,
What are we doing?
what are we doing? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like I was like, I thought you meant now. Like I
yeah.
was like, what are we
Yeah, like
doing?
and this is where we talked about them learning their lesson. Like last year, there was players that they waited way too long to replace. There was coaches, like even with the whole Joe Witt thing, way too long to replace. Like
Oh, y'all
you
know
know,
how I feel.
the kicker situation took way
Y'all
too
know
long to
how I
change. Like
feel.
it's like at some point you need to it's
Oh
the writing's on the
God.
wall. Like right now, like you said, after Detroit, it should have been immediately like this guy can't play center, play somebody else. And for him playing center on Monday, you start to be like, wait, did you guys not see the game or not? And so same thing applies right now. And I'm kind of chilling till Monday because look,
Kinda.
they got like kind of like I'm just I think
I'm
it makes
40% chill.
sense. It just makes sense that they wouldn't do anything until Monday. And the reason why is because like we said, they got tomorrow they have the day off. They have a game on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Cut day is on Sunday.
Cut days on
So
Sunday.
yeah, they'll have
Real talk.
Saturday evaluate, cut days on Sunday, and you scour the waiver wire to see all the other people who are getting cut. If there's
Scour
other
and check
people.
on your athletes who
Yeah,
are
no, that's
injured.
I just my thing. No, mainly check on. Yeah, like you should know who's available at this point. Is Alec
Yeah.
Grady going to play week 1 or not? Because if he's not, you need a center immediately. Like it's not
Yeah.
even a hesitation. And
No,
even
it's
if
not.
he's playing, even if Allegretti's playing in week 1, you need somebody to back him up because it's clear that no one can back him up right
But
now.
even then, it's not even that. I do feel like that yes, DJ Humphries, they signed a Pro Bowl left tackle. I think, he can, that was a sign of depth only. I feel like he even said it today, which I thought was kind of funny. Like, he was like, look, I'm coming in. I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to play to the best of my ability, but I am not the savior. And what's funny about that was I was like, okay, great. But also, too, they need a savior. So I was like, that's kind of like, But another thing I forgot to mention really quickly, and then we'll get off offense because I know you wanted to get into something else. But one of the biggest things, too, people have been asking me a lot about Bill. And that's the thing. Bill has a lower body injury. They haven't specified specifically what that lower body injury is, but obviously we didn't see him at all today, just practicing or whatever. But, obviously, too, Rashad White is still getting moved back into game style play. We didn't really see too much of the run game today from like the guys that we want to people are wanting to see it from. But it's like, obviously we saw K-Tron, we saw, Robert Henry Jr. And that also too sparked like, okay, yes, these guys are great. Like K-Tron, we've seen the abilities of both of them and the spark of both of them. But again, like I said earlier, like Robert had a fumble. He had one.
That guy don't want to make the team. Like I'm like, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but he played so well in that first week. Ever since then, it's like he's just going backwards. Like I honestly had him penciled in as making the squad. Now I'm like, yo, where's Jeremy McNichols? Is he healthy again or nah? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, honestly, because fumbles is something you can't deal with. You can't deal with it, like especially as a rookie player. They can't put you in there hoping that you can give them a couple carries, worried that you're going to drop the ball. But that is, I'm glad you made that point because that was kind of one of the things in one of the tweets I had today was that, people are freaking out over the Nikki tweet, and I just tweeted out basically being like, yo, just a reminder, not because she's wrong or like to go against what she's saying, but it is a reminder to remember that Tunsil's not here, Cosby's not here, Allegretti's not here, Bill's not there, Rashad White's not there. That's 5 quality starters that you believe are going to make an impact.
He just wasn't.
But he's not in. That's what I mean. Like he's not playing. Like that's my thing. Is that's 5 quality players, and one of them you're not getting back, right? Like Tunsil's not coming back this year. The other 4 though are potentially going to be there for week 1, so that's that's good for really important starters, right? Like so, to me, it's just it is a reminder that not all is lost. Like I think there are people who are like the season's they're gonna be terrible and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I would think it would be malpractice if they didn't make some kind of moves to gain some more depth on the O-line. So. What I want to talk about quickly, though, because we talked a little bit about defense, and to be honest, like that, one of the things I think is important is obviously talking about positives that you saw on the defensive side. I think we talked a little bit about the rush ability and stuff. What I liked, and people might ignore this, is that I thought Sonny, from some of the clips I saw, had good coverage.
Oh yeah,
and I think that the one thing that I'd like fans to remember is that there's been a lot of talk about he was drafted in number 7, top 10. He should be making all these splash plays. Linebackers don't make a ton of splash plays like that, especially with the amount of plays that he's actually been a part of. He hasn't played that many downs in the first
Tell me if
games.
I'm wrong, but I make the joke all the time. Like the linebackers are more so like the tight ends on the defense.
Kind of like in a way though. Like they're like my biggest thing for him is covering the ground of the field. Like Bobby, and this is the same thing with Bobby. Bobby was a player that somebody would knock him last year because he was not good in coverage, but Bobby made so many tackles. He was like in the top 5 in tackles or something like that.
He led the team in tackles.
Yeah, and
was the
so,
green dot guy.
And this is where I think people are forgetting like what is expected from a middle linebacker. He's not a rush end. He's not going to be getting a bunch of sacks like him. But what I will say, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is that Sonny, throughout all of training camp and all of preseason, in the games or plays he has played, he looks great in coverage.
Yeah.
For those who were complaining so much about Bobby Wagner last year, you're not going to have to worry about that with him this year. I don't believe so at all.
Yeah,
so,
no.
Did you see anything outside of, maybe you were impressed with Sonny today, but was there anybody that we haven't talked about that like impressed you also by being out there on the defensive side of the ball?
I mean, the linebacker room, to be honest, I personally think it wasn't a bad day. Based on what I saw, like, we saw some stints from each linebacker. I saw Kane Madrano out there. He had a pick very early on. I saw it from across the field. The team was happy about that, but Kane has shown tremendous growth this year. He has that strong up front. We did kind of see some guys, running into him a little bit today on the offensive side for the Ravens, but he wasn't backing down. And I could appreciate that more than blowing your coverage or blowing your spot. And like, that's the thing, is it's like, I will say the linebackers really dealt with the strength today. I think Sonny, in coverage, like Sonny's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. It's not going to look explosive. It's not going to be jaw dropping, depending on what the scheme really is. It depends on the scenario. I feel like, when it comes to Sonny, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He has the speed. He has the strength. It's all about, what are they running? What is the offense running? And I think that's what people don't understand. And, all the time too, like, he's not going to be that guy. That's the thing about Bobby, was in terms of the scheme that Joe had last year, the linebackers were, for some reason, expected to run downfield. And that's not what we're supposed to be watching. And it's like, for me personally, like, Sonny's doing what he needs to do. Leo had some flashes today of just strength. There were some struggle points, because it is the Ravens offense. They're trying to get a gist of it. But, overall, the linebackers, they did okay. They did good.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, I think that's what I hate about today, is that the overshadowing of other people who maybe performed relatively well, right? Like, I mean, there are some guys who played well. It sounds like Madrano was somebody. Antonio Williams looks to be like somebody who really does need to get a little bit more looks. I also think it sounds like the D-line brought some pressure, and but there are elements that need to be changed. And Mikey had a pick, which is always nice. A pick on a MVP level player is always important, right? Yeah,
it's football. You're gonna see good and bad stuff. I will say the bad things that we saw today for the Commanders is concerning, because it has everything to do with where this team needs to be. And there's a lot of there is a lot of pressure. Let me say this. There is pressure, and especially because of what happened in 2024, the unexpectedness of last year, injuries playing a part, but cannot be the main excuse anymore. So, it's game time. And some of these players, even that's why we saw frustration from Jeremy today. Mikey shared some of the same frustration, a little bit more, not as blunt as Jeremy and calmer. But, the frustrations are valid. It's either you win games and you play ball, or you go home. And
I'm kind of curious of what the frustration is from both of them, though, specifically. Like, is it just that they didn't perform super well? Like, I it's weird, because I'm so curious of where it's like kind of directed at. Like, even Jeremy. Like, I mean, Jeremy was very open about his frustration about them playing better. But I guess since I wasn't there, I can't really say. But it just seems like they were frustrated, but like it was so vague that I'm like, well, where is this coming at? Like, is it a coaching thing? Is it like, a mentality thing? Are they talking to the O-line? Are they talking to the DBs? Like, who are they talking to? What are they talking about?
Well, he was talking about the defense in general.
Yeah.
In terms of the DBs too. I think for Jeremy is big on communication and coverage and staying with your man, especially when they're doing, that man-on-man coverage and just things of that sort. I feel like that's what he was talking about today, especially when I heard what the question was that was asked. I was actually, when Jeremy was talking, I was actually at the podium with Jaden. So, it was kind of like a free-for-all thing. But the biggest thing is when I saw the video and because I got to hear it from someone and just what Jeremy was talking about. And I got some insights from other people too. Jeremy has every right to be frustrated with the coverage, because also too, obviously the DBs did not have the best day when it came to one-on-ones and certain things that were occurring. However, I do feel like that these are things that they're changing. I don't think it's coaching, because, Durante, they've praised Durante all camp. This is something that they've, wanted. And even the frustrations that I've seen from Jeremy today are very slight compared to the frustrations that I saw last year. Like, this is very slight. So, I think it was just you know,
They
Germany
want to be better. They want to
more
be better. Yeah,
be better, especially since they just faced their best opponent so
sure.
far in the preseason.
And
So I
we
get
we
it.
got to remember that. Like, I mean, this is the Ravens. Like, this is a team that could win the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Like, it is a team that
Hmm.
the level of talent and the ability that this team has is what they truly aspire to be.
Yeah.
But I think that them being frustrated about play is completely fair because ultimately you got to beat the best to be the best, right? So to me,
Hmm.
essentially. It sounds like it was not a great day. I think it is one of these things where there's elements that I think that we should be very critical of and be very concerned with, and then there's also elements I'm like, it's not that serious, right? Like, I think it's
Yeah.
where it's like you got to wait till week one to really gauge. I mean, the best thing about the preseason about to be done is like, yeah, I feel like overreaction theater is going to be over, right? Like, we're overreacting to every single
Mm.
thing. I
Yes.
think that when the season starts and people aren't playing well on week one, we can say, okay, well, they just suck or they're not doing well or something's wrong or something like that. Whereas right now, it's like there's a lot of things changing, a lot of things adjusting. Yeah, maybe they are really trying to figure out who is their depth pieces and they're okay with it. Maybe that's why, I don't know. Like, I just think um, I'm tired of looking at this type of ball. I want to watch real stuff. And
Yeah. Real
so I think,
game.
yeah, real games, man. Like, I'm done with preseason. So, that being said, we'll be there on Friday, me, you, and Marcus to see another
Hmm.
preseason game. And hopefully we'll get a little bit more answers when it comes to the depth pieces
Yes.
and mainly, obviously, specifically about and I maybe that's what we should talk about to close this out. Really, like, what do you want to see in the preseason? That last preseason game. I'll say first, what I want to see. I want to see clean kicks from Drew Stevens. I felt like he
Yes.
struggled a little bit in practice yesterday when I was out
Hmm.
there. It sounds like he did a little bit better today. And then I
Yeah.
also would love to see. The bottom of the receiver group, I think I really want to see because I think there is a lot of discussion on who's going to be, receiver 6 or 7 if they decide to go with 7,
Yeah.
but there is a strong competition there. And yeah, personally, just seeing maybe more of the rush ends, I'm happy with the way they've played so far. I just want to see a little bit more of it. So,
Hmm.
is there things that you are looking forward to seeing? In this preseason game, considering majority of the people probably won't be playing.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I'm excited to see is the depth of the run game. I do want to see more of Katron. I do want to see more of
Hmm.
Rob, just to kind of get a gist of, is this really what we was this really what they truly need? I mean, we've seen a lot so far, but
Sure.
let's end on a good note. That's all that I'm saying, especially since too, you know, it's very easy to see what they can do against a second team or a third team defense. But first team is also, something that is emphasized. You want to have
Yeah.
the best players out there on the field that you have. And if depth needs to come in and switch in and out, because you got to give some guys some breaks sometimes, or
Hmm.
there's injuries that may come up, you got to make sure that you have the best players up front. So, for
Yeah.
me, I do want to see more of the running game depth just to solidify some things I already know and kind of bring my evaluations to a full.
Hmm.
Another thing, I do want to see obviously is the tight ends. I know for the last game against Detroit, they did keep Chig in more, but there's still a lot more from the tight ends, especially from the depth part that I want to see. Colson Yankoff had a great camp, but
Hmm.
even then, he's been competing, with Lawrence and, John, and just overall that room to me, is still, and I'm probably going to ask DQ later on about, just his thoughts on the tight end room outside of Chig, but you know, I just want to see more from them outside of, it just being like warm ups and just little
Yeah.
stints that they
Yeah.
have. And then another thing that I really will be keeping an eye on is the DBs. They they released Will Harris yesterday. They released Malik Spencer, who had the
Yeah.
first
What do
pick
they
of
got?
camp,
Yeah.
and then
What do
a
they got
pick
in that safety room?
that
Yeah.
was
No,
a little
definitely.
surprising to me,
Hmm.
only because, for one, Malik had the first pick of the camp, and then two, he had a pick in the preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, look, me and Rio talked about it yesterday, and he was just like, "Man, I just can't believe they didn't like let him have one more game to see what he could
Right.
do." I'm shocked that they let go of
I am
Spencer. I
shocked.
really am, and so I agree. The safety room is another room that should be exciting to watch, or at least I don't even know about exciting, but like what's happening in the
Yeah.
depth of that safety room. It's not
Yeah.
a strong depth room, and they did bring a couple other guys in.
Yeah.
What can these guys do? Like I don't know any of these guys outside
Yeah.
of your top guys in that room.
Yeah.
So
And for Tyler Owens, and we talked about this too, like Tyler Owens has been a beast. The problem is with Tyler that I have is the consistency part.
agree.
And
Yeah.
also too, just making sure that the Commanders know how to use him. I
Yeah,
think now
'cause-
they've cracked the code because him coming off the edge like he did against
Yeah.
Detroit was exactly where he needed to
We
be.
need to see him make more plays actually being in the secondary though, because if he's a guy that is typecast as just a guy who can come off the edge, he might need to play a different position because
Yeah,
you
that's
can't,
true.
you know what I mean? Like you can't just have a guy who's gonna come off the edge and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean,
Look like
I
a
love the
linebacker.
player. I love him. You know what I'm saying? Like he is a great player, huge individual. The way he can move at that frame is crazy.
Yeah.
I think that like you said, I think he has all the talent in the world. It's really knowing how to utilize him and put him in the right
Yeah.
place. And I think that's the best thing that it seems to be happening with essentially the best thing to happen with Durante Jones is that him talking about an educator and really getting his guys in the right places and learning is big to me, right? So
Yeah.
look,
It's
that's
crazy.
it. That's all I want us to do. You know what I mean? It's been a long day. I'm happy that you were able to get out there and do some great work for us and give the coverage that we needed. People want to hear what you had to say
Yeah.
and see what you saw. For those, I think she'll be writing up a little story about everything that she saw in preparation for Friday's game. We will be at Friday's game. We'll probably do a 53-man prediction video probably the day after as we see what happens in this game, right?
Yeah.
So anything else, anything you got that you want to say before I let you go?
No. See y'all
No?
on Friday.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, If y'all
Chill
watch
out.
the game on Friday, see y'all on Friday. Chill out.
Yeah.
Don't crash
Chill
out.
out. Yeah. No
Don't
more
take
crash
anything
outs.
to heart, okay?
Yeah.
Look, us as media, we're not gonna lie to you, but we're gonna tell you guys what you need to know, and that's
Yeah.
it. You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it. Oh, yeah. I guess we should plug in our website. The website is live for those who haven't seen it yet. We have gallery stories, all that stuff going out on there.
Yes.
Obviously, we appreciate all the support, man. I went to the Commanders Kings event, and I had so many people who came up to us and said how much they liked, this what we've been doing. People who've been watching our show, which I'm super, grateful for. So we're gonna keep going, keep doing it. We got a long season, man. I know that people are a little down today because it wasn't the greatest day for them.
Yeah.
But there is a long season coming up.
Oh my God.
And we're excited to cover it. And I think we'll be much happier.
Look,
by
come
the
to
end
me
of
with
the day,
these feelings in week 11, okay?
Exactly.
Don't
You're
come
not
to
wrong.
me
Like
right now
week
and
6,
week
week
1 hasn't even
9.
approached.
Yeah, like we haven't played a game. We haven't
Right.
seen them play a game yet. So like let's chill out a
Let's
little bit.
chill,
Yeah.
okay?
So anyways, thank you guys. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you later. All right, peace.